to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by a good friend of ours, Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. We're going to chat with him a little bit about his bracket, what he's expecting from this year's NCAA tournament, the edges that you're able to find on a lot of these openers when you get these NCAA tournament games posted up after the round of games is concluded, whether that be after the first round, second round, what have you. And we're going to talk about these NIT games as well in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this College Basketball Wednesday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but we had ourselves a fun day of college basketball on Tuesday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
For those asking the question who your best against the spread team in all of college basketball is this season, I think a lot would be surprised to know that team is Howard, now 21-8-1 against the spread. They're able to get the job done against the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, 86-83, and for UMBC, they were able to drain their threes, 9 of 22 from distance. Caden Diggs off the bench was able to give the team 15 points. J. Lyle King, he was able to throw in their 19 points, but Howard had on their side Osei Okoji, 23 points. For Howard, they do go just 18 of 25 at the free throw line, but won the rebound battle 38-32. They win the turnover battle 9-8 as well, and they went 10-21 from three-point range, as both of these teams shot it really well from the outside. And for NC State, disappointing second half of the season. It ends with a loss to Texas, 68-66 the final. Now, Texas had something like a 7 to 8 point lead with 90 seconds remaining. NC State ties it up, but Draymond Mark called game, a nice step back jumper from about like 15 or so feet with a second remaining. He led the way with 17 points. For Texas, they started 5 of 9 from 3, then 5 of 17 from the outside, and for NC State 6 of 16 from the outside. But for Texas, they won the rebound battle 45-30 as Chanda Weaver off the bench, a double-double, 11 points, 10 rebounds. For NC State, they do win the turnover battle 12-7, but they shoot just 39% from the floor. For NC State, Darian Williams did his best with 21 points, but very much a disappointing end of the season for them. And then we had some really good NIT action as well. Some of the best cover teams in all of college basketball were in action, like our good friend Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin, now 23-9 against the spread. That is where they're going to be ending this one, as they do inevitably fall in overtime to Tulsa, 89-84, but they did cover that plus 7.5. For Tulsa, just 9 of 33 from 3. For Stephen F. Austin, 10 of 32 from 3. And Stephen F. Austin, 10 of 16 at the free throw line, 32 out of 41 for Tulsa. That's where this game was lost, as Tulsa also won the rebound battle 50-36. And they got Jalen Lual off the bench for 24 points. And Stephen F. Austin, Keon Thompson, 27 points, 12 of 18 from the floor. So Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin, they did their best. For Seattle, they were in a 1-point game with St. Thomas with about 5:30 remaining. They go on a massive bonsai charge. I believe it was something like 20-3, maybe 19-3 to end the game, 67-52. They take down St. Thomas. St. Thomas 5 of 22 from 3. Seattle 9 of 21 from the outside end. For Seattle, you had Braden Maldonado lead the way with 15 points, 6 boards, 5 assists. For St. Thomas, they doomed themselves in this game. They lost the turnover battle 21-11. Actually won the rebound battle 42-29. But when you have 10 more turnovers than your opponents, it makes it very hard to be able to win games. For UNC Wilmington, they do find a way to win this game. 68-67, they're able to take down Yale, and Wilmington has been a pretty rock-solid team against the spread this year. 16-13-2, and for Wilmington, they go 10 of 26 from three-pointers. Christian May, it was May Day, 16 points, 8 rebounds for Wilmington and Yale. They both had 8 turnovers apiece. Yale didn't win the rebound battle 49-48, but 8 of 27 from 3, one of their coldest performances of the season. Isaac Salazar was solid, 4 of 5 from three-point range, 23 points. Rest of the team went 4 of 23 from three-point range, though, and Wilmington, they're on to the next round of the NIT, as is Liberty. Liberty Bibberty, they take down George Mason by a count of 77-71, as for Liberty, 6 of 17 from 3, 5 of 17 for George Mason. Not a ton of threes shot in this game, but for Liberty, Liberty, they did a nice job winning the turnover battle, 8-6. For George Mason, they do win the rebound battle, 36-32, but they did not have on their side Josh Smith, who had 23 points, 9 rebounds. So Liberty, they do find a way to persevere. They get the job done as an underdog. Wichita State win but no cover against Wyoming, 74-70. The final for Wyoming, 10-28 from 3, just 10-20 at the free throw line. Wichita State, 13 out of 23 at the free throw line. So if you took this total to the under, you could take them as free throws for that. Wichita State dominates the boards. They win the rebound battle 55-34, though they did lose the turnover battle 15-10. And for Wichita State off the bench, TJ Williams, 17 points, 14 rebounds. Emmanuel Okafor was able to supply the team with 12 rebounds. Will Berg off the bench had a block himself. So Wichita State, they did control things down low. Unable to get the cover, though. And for Davidson, they were able to get the cover. They don't get the win against Oklahoma State, but they hold in there 84-80, the final. As for Davidson, they had a nice performance off the bench from Robert Blums, 22 points, 6 of 14 from 3. Davidson, 15 of 40 overall from the outside. Oklahoma State, 7 of 15 from 3-point range. Kanye clearly was able to throw in there 20 points. They were playing without Anthony Roy in this game. You want to note that moving forward for Oklahoma State. They do win the rebound battle 39-32. They do lose the turnover battle, though, 8-6, and went just 21 out of 30 at the free throw line. So big reason why you were unable to cover that one. Auburn was down at the half to South Alabama. They do rally to win 78-67 final in this one. Kashawn Murphy, one of the forwards for Auburn, he did not play in this game. It looks like his Auburn career is done, but they did have Kashawn all out there. 21 points, 6 rebounds for Auburn. They lose the turnover battle 9-5, and they go 16 out of 44 from 3. Heated up in the second half as they were cold in the first half. South Alabama, though, had the Chaz Harris supplied 29 points, so South Alabama, they were able to get a nice quality cover. Do have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, and I'm doing this as we've got the UNLV versus UC Irvine game going on. About 8 minutes remaining. UNLV currently in the lead by a count of 57-52. It's an Irvine team that's just 2 of 7 from 3-point range in the first 32 minutes of the game, and UNLV has done a nice job in terms of winning the rebound battle, 30-27. Been a sloppy game. 18 turnovers on the side of UNLV, just 11 for UC Irvine, so we'll see if the sloppiness persists, as UC Irvine has been a very interesting team thus far this season, about a 500 team against the spread. They've been able to catch you some unders, so as this has been a very rock-solid defensive team, 12 versus 20 unders entering into the night. Meanwhile, UNLV has actually been a team that has catch you quite a few overs, 20 overs to 12 unders, and if you're looking at trend-wise, what we've all gotten in college basketball here over the last week or so that's pretty much conference championship week, and here into the first night of the NCAA tournament, we've been having ourselves a lot of unders. 86 unders is 63 overs, and we've had, I believe, one push along the way, so 57.7% hit rate to the under. Underdogs, they're ending at 56.2%, 84-65 against the spread. That is with a UNLV game pending, by the way, and overall for the season, it's been an unders and underdog season. Underdogs sitting at 51%, 2,913, 2,739 against the spread. Meanwhile, the unders hitting at 50.8%, 2,871 unders to 2,782 overs. So that's where we're seeing college basketball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, how about if we chatted up with our good friend Rob Donaldson, who does such great work on the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, right here on Let's Go Soups, with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Decent Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Let's Go Soups with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and it's always great to be joined by this man. We've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does such great work over at Underdog Fantasy, looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. He, much like myself, absolutely dialed into college basketball, and The moment that the nets are cut down, he is based around looking at winners in baseball, which I can appreciate that as well. He does a tremendous job as well on youtube.com/Rob Donaldson with his show, The Rob's Best Bet Show. And you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at RobDFB. And Rob, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for having me on. And my goodness, man, we have been putting out college basketball content together for months and months and months. And this is the culmination point, right? We get the NCAA tournament bracket, we get the NIT, we get the crown, and then our work for the season comes to an end. It's almost kind of bittersweet, but hey, we got a lot more excitement to go before that bittersweetness fully kicks in. I'm happy to be on talking with you today.
Oh, absolutely. It is amazing what we've got in college basketball right now. And just how do you take a look at betting the NCAA tournament as opposed to the regular season and even conference tournaments? Because this is just a completely different animal. And are there some changes they have to make for this time of year as opposed to the rest of the season?
100%, because this is the first time we're seeing a true, win or die type of thing. We saw it with Ole Miss and we've seen it with Oklahoma in these conference tournaments where, we see a team come out of the depths and just make a run to try to save their season. We see that every single season. But truly, this is the best of the best teams with that same type of mentality where they've never been in this spot before this moment in this calendar year. And so I do think the human element is something that you can't just analyze on a spreadsheet. You can't just analyze through Ken Pom or, Bart Torvik or anything like that. You actually have to factor in like, hey, what's the moment going to feel like for some of these players in some of these spots? And does that other team with nothing to lose, maybe a higher seed, have that potential edge of just having really talented guys who are playing with like that unconscious ability? And I do think if you're not factoring that in to some extent, you're kind of missing the boat. Hey, the chalk worked out last year for a lot of that, but I think ultimately that might have been just an anomaly year. And I'm not willing to kind of factor in, that being the case moving forward just because NIL is more prevalent than ever.
Yep, and I do think that it is going to be so interesting to see what we get in the first round of this NCAA tournament, because I'm not sure you're taking a look at things, but I don't think we're going to quite see what we got a few years ago where Florida Atlantic and San Diego State were fighting for a shot to be able to make the title game. At the same time, I don't think that we get 4 1 seeds either. I'm not sure what your approach is, but I'm thinking we're going to get somewhere between A and B.
I think you're spot on where I'm not taking, 15 seeds to advance. I'm not taking 16 seeds to advance. That would be kind of egregious. I am taking some spreads with those 15 seeds. I think ultimately the 12s are going to feel a little bit more lively this year. I think the 13s could feel a little bit more lively. And there's maybe 1 or 2 14s that could make things interesting for a spell. And at least when it comes to against the spread talk, might actually be able to, stick within that range. So I think ultimately when you look at the field this year, to your point, it's probably not going to be number 1 seeds filling up the Final Four and 1 and 2 seeds filling up the Elite Eight. But I don't think it's going to be too far removed from that, like we saw with like St. Peter's and VCU over the years, making it as double-digit seeds.
Yeah, I don't think that there's going to be a St. Peter's in this year's bracket, but when it comes to some of those first-round matchups and some of the double-figure seeds that you think have a chance to win, who are a few that come to mind? Because I really think that Michigan got the best draw out of all the 1 seeds, and I take a look at their region, I think that there could be a little bit of chaos there.
Yeah, especially with this news with Aiden Holloway. We'll see, if he ends up playing or not. And certainly we can't put it past Nate Oates. He's played Charles Bediako and Brandon Miller. And who knows if Aiden Holloway is going to be kind of added to that list of playing, but kind of in questionable status. And I think Hofstra on the other side is a shot-making team. And so if you're looking for that team that can get hot at the right time and fill up the scoreboard against a team that's a little bit shorthanded, Hofstra is a great 13 seed to latch on to. And I think on the other side of the bracket, when you're looking at another 13 seed in Troy taking on Nebraska, this is again where I think the human element is so important because Nebraska's had a great year. Fred Hoiberg has turned this program into something that should be respected and marveled at. It's been a great run. They're 26-6. I mean, this is Nebraska we're talking about. And monkey on their back is that they've never won an NCAA tournament game. And so now when you're going up and you're the favorite, you're the overwhelming favorite, 14.5 points, and you're taking on a Troy team and Scott Cross, an experienced head coach who last year got mopped off the floor and is probably using that fuel to, fuel the fire this season. Again, I'd like Troy to prevail outright in that game against Nebraska. And unfortunately, I think Nebraska just got a tough draw for that 13 seed line.
Yeah, they did. And it is going to be really interesting to see if Nebraska can finally get an NCAA tournament win. It has been a very, very long time for them, as Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And we'll get back into the NCAA tournament in a minute. But when it comes to finding edges, how much this time of year are you going to be taking a look at the NIT and the Crown? Because everyone's talking about brackets, everyone's talking about what 12 seed, what 13 seed might win a game, what non-1 seed might make a Final Four. But I think there's a lot to be had in an NIT that I think has a lot of teams that are going to be very competitive. You're not going to have a lot of players opting out because it's a lot of mid-majors, and I think we're in for a fun field here with the NIT.
And we saw an awesome NIT play out last year. It was a mid-major classic, if you will, and although it wasn't, set up to be that in terms of only mid-majors got in, the best games just delivered time and time again with those mid-major squads. It was great from the first round until the finish, and I do think that when you're looking at the NIT, I treat it very similar to, say, like a college football bowl season, where this means something to some of these teams, some of these players, some of these coaches. It doesn't mean everything to like all of these teams. I would say, although Stephen Pearl wants Auburn to succeed, do the players give a crap about this? Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. I feel very similar to a team like a Nevada, for example, that maybe the players aren't really juiced up. Maybe even Steve Alford really isn't juiced up for this tournament.
I will say this. I do have to correct you on Nevada. They were begging to get into the NIT, actually.
Oh, sure. Hey, fair enough. And honestly, I love that. I love when these teams truly, truly embrace it, because that's the spirit of the sport, right? It's playing for something. And I think when you're going down the lines and you're trying to find the angles, find the teams with, ambitious head coaches. I think of like a Sundance Wicks, for example, at Wyoming. I feel like that next year that's coming up on the horizon could be the year where Wyoming is sitting at near the top of that Mountain West standings. And ultimately, when you're going line by line, I look at Stephen F. Austin. I look at a Colorado State with Ali Farouk-Manesh in year one. When it matters to a coach, when it matters to players, those are the teams that you want to latch onto in a tournament where that might not be the case across the board, especially with those higher seeds in the tournament.
Yep, absolutely. Like, I was laughing because Steve Alford sounded like someone as thirsty as a man in the desert to get into the NIT. So he was begging and pleading to get in. So I don't think that the motivation will be lacking there. And are there any NIT games that are standing out for Wednesday? Because we're going to be having 8 of them. We've got some West Coast flair. We've got some East Coast flair. And we've got ourselves some big underdogs. And I'm not sure how you look at this, but a double-digit underdog like a Navy, a double-digit underdog like a Sam Houston, those are teams that are really catching my attention.
And I think they should. And ultimately, when you are looking at the NIT for Wednesday, I think there's so many games where you have a team that just had a disappointing finish to their season. You had a Kent State team that had a chance to beat Akron, came up really short. It's a veteran-heavy squad. How do they show up? You have Utah Valley, who missed the chance to go to OT on a missed point-blank dunk. There are some heartbreaks when you're looking at these squads that are in this dance. Heck, UIC lost in the Missouri Valley title game as well. And ultimately, that's where I almost kind of want to go against the grain and say, hey, I get it. Utah Valley is a very good team. They might be extra motivated to win this thing, but I am going to take a shot with George Washington on the road in that spot. I also really like a game with a Sam Houston where I thought Sam Houston State truly, even though they lost to Kennesaw State, was the best team in the CUSA. I would have loved to seen them in the dance. And I think right now, in terms of the motivation and the buildup that they've been seeing year over year during this tenure, I think it's potentially going to culminate into an NIT championship. I could totally see that happening. And so go ahead and give me Sam Houston State as well, getting 11.5 points against New Mexico. If you want a crazy money line play, I think that's one to also be taking a look at there too.
I don't know if I'll be able to get there on the money line. I think that George Washington, if we can get a few more points, because right now I'm seeing 1.5. Right now, that's a very, very tight spread. So that's going to be fascinating to take a look at, to say the least. But we've got ourselves some fun ones there. And then we've also got the first 4 as well. And a team that we have talked about a lot on this podcast, Miami of Ohio, is 6.5 to a 7-point underdog. How do you take a look at this game? Because obviously, if you look at the raw athleticism, the metrics, they do give SMU an edge here, but they back their way into the NCAA tournament. You don't know what you're going to get out of BJ Edwards, and you've been talking a lot about the human element. Miami of Ohio, they've been begging, they've been pleading for a step-up game. They finally get it.
Yeah, and this is one where initially I jumped at the SMU price. I actually laid the 7.5 at open. And as it's kind of gone throughout the week, I've almost subtly regretted it to an extent because, part of my logic in doing so was, SMU got that kind of revival. They got that chance to get back in the dance where we saw like in North Carolina in a very similar spot last year really make a statement in that opening game against San Diego State. I felt like SMU got that kind of revival on their life because, yeah, to your point, they backed into the dance. And that was in large part, I think, to just injuries and attrition at key spots, especially with Edwards. And who knows what he looks like for sure. And on the other side, when you're looking at Miami of Ohio, I felt like they kind of backed into the dance in their own little way where they only had one loss, but they were struggling down the stretch. It felt like they were wearing that monkey on their shoulders heavy. It felt like every single game, whether it was Western Michigan, Buffalo, Ohio, UMass, all tightly contested. Every single time, it felt like they would go through lapses on offense. That's not true to the form of a Miami of Ohio team that we've seen the past 2 seasons. And so what version of them do we get now that they do have that loss? Now that, maybe they can kind of, again, look at this as almost like a revival on their season. I think it could be an ultimate mixed bag. I still tend to want to lay it with SMU just ultimately because kind of speaking to the trend, seeing it with North Carolina last year, when a team that maybe doesn't really deserve it, more so on the edge than Miami of Ohio, gets in, I think sometimes they can make a statement, but ultimately this might be a game that now, after I'm kind of reflecting after a couple days, I just ultimately stay off.
Yep, I think that one is going to be very interesting as well. And did you have anything on Leigh versus Prairie View? Because we are two men that we love to be able to get into these little games. I really think that there's a nice edge here on the over. I'm seeing that total at a 142.5 with a Prairie View team that they absolutely love to gun it. And you get many points with the clock stop with both they going to the free throw line and them putting opponents at the free throw line.
Well, hey, you know me, Greg. I'm chomping at the bit when it comes to these games, and so I'm betting them the second that I can, right? I already know kind of my analysis in terms of these matchups. I gravitated towards Lehigh immediately. The money line price was minus 120 at open, so I grabbed that. Now that's sort of off the table because they're laying a full possession, and I tend to think at that number, I'm probably still going with Brett Reed and the Lehigh, Mountain Hawks here, but at the same time, I'm less convicted in that measure. Now, it's a playing game. I think you should be betting this if you have a hand in college basketball. This is fun. The first 4 is fun. Go ahead and I would lay it with Lehigh, but again, maybe don't make it the most sizable bet on the board now after kind of the post-line movement.
Yep, and how much would you encourage people to actually be lowering their unit size this time of year? Because everyone wants to bet these games. Everyone is thinking, oh boy, it's the NCAA tournament, but I think that we both agree you're going to get much, much bigger edges in the middle of January betting on the Southland than you are during the NCAA tournament, because we both know this, bookmakers do not up their limits and up the amount that you're able to bet because they think that they've got a lesser chance of being able to get the number correct.
Are 100% spot on. These games, every single one of them, there's no sneaking up on you, right? It's not a game that gets buried with 150 or whatever games on a college basketball Saturday. This is a microscope type of affair. And so think about it like the Monday slates or the Thursday slates, or rather the Monday or Friday slates that we saw during the regular season. Those games are typically sharp down to the number. And so the best strategy, in my opinion, is you got to get in early. You got to get in at the open of these lines, especially once, the round of 32 has matchups that are starting to post for Saturday. Get out in front of it. Don't bet at the day of, because if you bet at the day of, you're betting against the sharpest of numbers that's kind of been weighted down by both sides of the coin. And so ultimately, that would be my best advice. Also, to your point, if I were kind of falling that latter category of not handicapping it myself personally, 100% you should be lowering unit sizes. That's the responsible thing to do. And ultimately, again, you can fall in love with a lot of different angles, but just know that line exists for a reason. It's not like they just threw it out there and then you're like, oh, well, let's see what happens. Let's see where the bettors gravitate towards. They put out lines to drive action to certain sides, and they know what they're doing. They know how to turn a profit. Just always keep that in mind.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll open this up a little bit as well. Are there a few bets in terms of round of 64? It can be some of the first 4 games. It can be what we're getting on Thursday or on Friday that you still feel like there might be a little bit of value on, even though the number might have moved a bit.
I look at a game right now. This is Akron versus Texas Tech. The money line price is still in kind of the ballpark where I really, really like it. I got plus 320. It's still around that 280 to 3-1 type of range. And the actual line itself is Akron plus 7.5. I feel like John Gross, if you want to talk about a team that's gotten so many cracks at the dance to pull an upset, it's Akron and this John Gross squad where every single year they have athletes. This year, I feel like, again, they have a number of athletes that can make a potential, Sweet 16 run if everything breaks their way. And they're going up against a Texas Tech team that, yes, has looked great without JT Toppin. And obviously, Christian Anderson is going to be fine. He's going to play this game, and they're still a formidable team. But last year, we saw UNC Wilmington take this Texas Tech team down to the wire. A lot of different faces in the lineup, but I think this is actually a little bit of a diluted version comparatively to last year's squad. And who knows? I think it's anybody's game if Akron's making shots. And I do think, again, if you can pocket that 7.5 or 8.5, that's probably one of my favorite bets on the board there on Friday.
I like that as well. I advance Akron in my bracket, so I do think that they've got a good shot to be able to pull this off. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this when it comes to your bracket, because I'm sure that you've filled out one, if not multiple. I'm a one bracket guy personally, but that said, who do you have with regards to your Final Four, and who do you have cutting down the nets on your bracket?
Yeah, so the Final Four, this is one that I kind of wade through a bunch of different times, and to your point, I'm a one bracket guy, so yes. I want to nail it. I don't want to spread the board and be like, oh, look at this bracket at 94%.
Bracket 47 had the 13 seed.
And use it as bragging rights. We grew up with those types of people, and it's
my mom.
More power to you. Everybody needs to enjoy the tournament in their own way. I get it. I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon, but I'm a one bracket kind of guy. And so looking at my Final Four, this is my only Final Four. I have Duke taking on Illinois, and then I have Arkansas taking on Michigan, and ultimately cutting down the nets. I have a Michigan-Duke final. I think Michigan gets that revenge that we saw obviously late in the season. It was a great neutral site affair. I think Michigan gets the revenge and cuts down the nets, and Dusty May, it's treated almost like that Todd Golden last year, a young coach at a new stop, really making waves and kind of that national scene.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see what we get there. I actually have Purdue versus Michigan in the Final Four, which I think that would be a lot of fun if we do get it. So we've got ourselves a lot to take a look at in this landscape. The next few weeks are going to be amazing. And Rob, you're doing an amazing job of being able to take a look at it all. And additionally, you, much like myself, getting set for baseball season. So love to get people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's always a blast talking college hoops with you, my man. And for those who want to follow my bets on a nightly basis, Twitter/X at RobDFB. And also tonight, as we're recording this on Tuesday, I'm going to be uploading a futures episode and a bracket reveal of my personal bracket on my YouTube channel at Rob Donaldson. So be sure to tune in that as well. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, man. And let's have a really fun week here.
Oh, absolutely. It is the best time of year. We're going to have ourselves a lot of fun taking a look at the NCAA tournament. Rob, he is dialed into everything, and every single time he joins me, learns such great insight. So big thanks to Rob for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Wednesday as we hit some big shots. We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson, who does such amazing work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights and did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Wednesday as we hit some make shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81. We're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order pretty easy today. That's where we're going to be going with the two NCAA tournament games, and then from there, the NIT games in time order. So let's get things started. This is 685-686. Leigh is going to be playing against Prairie View out there in Dayton, Ohio. Prairie View an underdog of 3 to 3.5 points. Totals 142.5 to 143.5, and I do like the over. I set my total at a 151.5. got a Prairie View team that is absolutely gunning it in terms of total possessions per game. This bunch is currently ranked 21st in all of college basketball. Leigh, more of a mid-tempo team, about 208th with regards to total possessions per game, and it's a Leigh team that has been right in that neighborhood, about 232nd in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. The big thing for them is that they're going to need to take care of the ball. Prairie View is a top 40 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Leigh 241st in terms of ball security overall, but in games played away from home, that does go into the top 175, and this is a Leigh team that should have a nice advantage down low. Prairie View just has not been able to grab a lot of boards, and typically this is a weakness for Leigh. Leigh 331st in the country in terms of rebound percentage. Prairie View is 336th, and when it comes to Leigh, they've got a 20-point per game scorer in Nasir Whitlock, who's done a nice job giving this team about 3.5 assists per game as well to go along with 44.5% three-point shooting. Hank Alvey, 7 boards, 15 points. He's been able to shoot about 41% from the outside. Leigh really pushes you to the inside. They're a top 20 team in terms of percentage of field goal attempts by opponents that come from inside the three-point line, and they've been a top 175 team in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage, and you do have a Prairie View team that should have Tayron Joseph back for this game, but if you take a look at what he did in the SWAC tournament, as he was averaging 20 points per game prior to then, he was only putting in there about 15 or so minutes per game. It's very much looking less than 100%. Now, to the credit of Prairie View, they've been 80th in the country in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage, so they've been able to do a relatively solid job in terms of holding up there. But that said, this is also a bunch that they are going to put you on the free throw line constantly, because this is a team that they very much, for lack of a better term, sell for turnovers. They are 344th in terms of percentage of opponents' possessions that end in a free throw. Leigh, they shoot about 73% at the free throw line, and for Prairie View, they're going to be very much based around Dante Horn. He went around the horn for 24 points per game in SWAC conference play. Overall for the season, averaging about 20 points, 3 assists per contest. You've got Lance Williams, who's able to throw in there about 10 points per contest as well, but I think that the over-aggression of Prairie View, along with Prairie View being about 300th in the country with their own two-point shooting percentage, I think that that's going to be a little bit costly. I think that you get an up-and-down game, so like the over, semi-total at a 151.5, and with Leigh, I made them a 3.5 point favorite, so we'll lay up to 3 with them. 687, 688 on the card. Miami of Ohio is going to be taking on SMU, and SMU finds themselves as a 6.5 to a 7 point favorite. So it's between 163.5 to 164.5. I made Miami of Ohio the favorite. I actually took Miami of Ohio on the money line. Now, I would probably encourage for most of you that might be feeling a little bit more scared, just take the 6.5 to 7, as I did set my line at 1, but I think Miami of Ohio wins this game outright. With Miami of Ohio, they didn't get any chances at a step-up game in non-conference play. Now here they are as a bunch that has been very good on offense. A top 30 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. They face off against an SMU team that has just been wretched with their defense. They're about 175th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, getting blowtorched on the inside. They are well outside the top 225 with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage. Now for SMU, you got Kevin Miller, who's been able to boop teams with give you over 19 points per game, and he's been a high 30/40% three-point shooter. And additionally, they should have back in this game BJ Edwards. He was missing for about 4 or 5 games to end the regular season, averaging about 12.5 points, 6 boards, shoots 37% from 3, but how close to 100% is he going to be is a little bit of a question mark. Matt Yedoglu has been able to give you 8 rebounds per game, and this is Miami of Ohio group that has had a little bit of a disadvantage down low. SMU top 100 team with regards to offensive rebound percentage, grabbing 12.3 offensive rebounds per game, and Miami of Ohio, they only grab about 23% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is outside the top 300 in all of college basketball. As a matter of fact, close to about 330th, and both of these teams have been really good three-point shooting teams. You've got an SMU team that overall for the season, they're shooting right around about 37.4% from the outside, 23rd in the country, but that drops to 35.3% away from them. Meanwhile, Miami of Ohio, they shoot 37.9% from the outside in games played away from them. They're also playing this game in Dayton, Ohio, very close to the Miami of Ohio campus. Peter Suter, Brent Byers, they've been able to combine for about 29 points per game. These two guys combined to shoot about 41% from 3. You've had Antoine Woolfolk give you 10.5 points, 5.5 boards, 3.5 per contest, and Miami of Ohio sneakily has been pretty solid in terms of generating turnovers. A top 100 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and I'm not saying that this is some sort of like a defensive stalwart or anything like that, but I mean, this team has done I think the best way to put it is a functional job in terms of guarding the three-point line and games played away from them. Teams are shooting about 32.6% from three-point against them. That is a top 85 mark in the country. Meanwhile, SMU, they're allowing teams to shoot overall 33.9% from three, 174th in the country. I think the Miami of Ohio relishes a moment. I like them on the money line. Semi-total at a 165. You should get an up and down game here. SMU, 49th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Miami of Ohio 30th, so at a 164.5 or less, I do like the over. Now we have the NIT games. This is 689, 690. Wake Forest is going to be playing us to Navy, and Navy is an 11.5 to a 12.5 point underdog. Total on this game, 147.5 to 148.5, and I like the points here with Navy. I did set them as a underdog of 7 points. For Wake Forest, this has been a defense that's just been getting below torch down low. In terms of their defensive rebound percentage, it's a unit that ranks outside the top 300 on all of college basketball teams, grabbing 31.5% of their misses as an offensive rebound. Navy is 46th in this regard. Wake Forest, 283rd in the country in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage as well. And Navy with Aiden Kauai, who's been able to give you 15 plus points, 10 plus rebounds per game. I think it's going to do a nice job matching up here. Austin Benjini has been able to give you 8 points per game. He shoots 88% of the free throw line, 44% from three. Jinwoo Kim shoots 42% from the outside. And for this Navy team, they just do the little things well. In games played away from home, they've been a top 10 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, a top 10 unit in terms of fewest free throw attempts allowed on a per game basis. They guard the arc well. Teams are shooting less than 30.5% from three against them. That's a top 20 mark in the country. And for Wake Forest, they dealt with the injury to guard Nate McCalmezi, which really caused them to be a little bit dysfunctional towards the back half of the season. Now they do have the top overall scorer in this game. That'd be Juke Harris, 21.3 points, 6.5 boards, shoots about 33% from three. And then Miles Colvin shoots about 36% from three, 11.5 points per game. So Wake Forest has a little bit of firepower on the outside. Wake Forest, they began the season generating a bunch of turnovers. They have since fallen outside the top 100 with regards to turnovers generated on a per possession basis. And with this team also being outside the top 100 with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage, they rely upon their 77.5% free throw shooting percentage. That's a top 25 mark in the country. And Navy not giving you a lot of those opportunities, and Navy's going to look to slow it down. 327th in terms of total possessions per game. I think that the Navy defense holds up here. Semi-total 145. I like the under and the points with Navy. 691, 682. Kent State is going to be on the road against Illinois State. Illinois State does find themselves as a 5.5 to a 6.5 point favorite. 153 to 154 is the total line. I do like the over. I did set my total here at a 155.5. Kent State absolutely gunning it in terms of total possessions per game. These guys are checking in 13th in all of college basketball. Illinois State, neither here nor there. They're not necessarily going to look to play super slow, but 257th in terms of total possessions per game. And Illinois State, 6th in the country in terms of points per possession allowed at home. And for Kent State, this has been a unit that has had all sorts of issues with regards to three-point shooting when they've been away from home. At home, this has been one of the best three-point shooting teams in all of college basketball. And overall, it's a Kent State team that does rank 93rd in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, but they do average about 13.3 points fewer per 100 possessions when they're away from home rather than at home. As Kent State at home, right now they're shooting 39.5% for three, falls off to 31% away from home. And in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage, they allow opponents to shoot 34.9%. That is about 241st in all of college basketball. Illinois State has been neither here nor there with their three-point shooting, but that goes up to 37th at home. Kent State, their bread has been buttered down low. They rebound about 34% of their missed shots as an offensive rebounder away from home. 27th in the country with Delreco Gillespie leading that charge, 18 points, 11 boards. Doesn't really pop it from three, but it's feeling a block per contest. Zion Medley, about 11 points, 6 assists, but he does turn the ball over 3 times per game, and that's been a big undoing for Kent State. Kent State right now outside the top 290 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. They sure as heck get to the free throw line, top 15 team in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession and a per game basis, but again, having big-time issues from the outside when they're away from home. And then for Illinois State, you got a lot of guys that were hoping to go to the NCAA tournament. Didn't quite get there, but a very proud group that I believe that they took part in the CBI last year. Johnny Kinzinger, he's been rough with his three-point shooting at about 31% with 11.5 points per game, but you've got Chase Walker down low, 13.5 points, 5.5 boards. Illinois State, a top 30 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage to take away that forte of Kent State, grabbing those second and third chances. And then Tariq Coleman, Bowden Skunberg, they combined to shoot about 42 42% from three, between 10 to 10.5 points per game out of both of those guys. Illinois State not going to put you under too much stress. They're outside the top 230 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, so I think that you get enough scoring opportunities for the over, but I do think that Illinois State does the little things that they need to get the job done here. Set my line at 9.5, so I'm going to lay with Illinois State, and I'm going to be taking a shot on the over. 693, 694. George Washington, our nation's first president, is on the road against Utah Valley. Utah Valley, 1.5 to 2-point favorites. So on this game, 156.5 to 157.5. I do like the over. I did set my total here at a 158.5. With George Washington, the offense has very much been able to travel. If you look at points scored on a per possession basis when they're away from home, it's a George Washington team that finds themselves 19th in the country, but also 261st in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis away from home. Utah Valley, their main kryptonite, turnovers. They're in 50th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, but they make up for it by being a top 10 team in terms of generating turnovers on a per possession basis on defense, and they're still 130th in terms of points per possession on offense, even though they have had their issues with the turnovers because they're 32nd with their own 2-point shooting percentage on offense, 38th in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage on defense, and this is a George Washington team that in games played away from home, they are well outside the top 260 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Now, part of that was because they were dealing with an injury to their main big man in Rafael Castro, 15.5 points, 8.5 boards, good versatility with a 1.7 steals, 1.7 blocks per contest, and then from the outside, you've got Trey Autry, Christian Jones, who combined to shoot about 37.2% from three, combined 21 points per game. Garrett Johnson throws in their 11.5 points per game, so I have to like what these guys bring to the table, but for Utah Valley, I do think that Jackson Holcomb is going to do a nice job taking over this game. 15.5 points, 7 boards, about 3.5 assists, 2.2 steals per contest. Trayvon Leonard, 12 points, 6 assists. He shoots 36% from three. Tyler Hendricks is a 48% three-point shooter as well. So you've got a lot working for this Utah Valley team. One that will put you on the free throw line, top 125 team in terms of free throw attempts allowed on a per game basis. But the way that they lock down from the inside, I think it's going to be enough to be able to get the job done against a George Washington team that has given up a lot down low. So set my line at 2.5. I'm going to lay up to 2 with Utah Valley. I think that the travel going to be tough for George Washington here. I do like the over. So my total 158.5. 695, 696. Bradley is going to be playing against Dayton. Dayton that finds themselves as a road favorite of 1.5 points. So on this game, 143.5 to 144. Like the over. I set my total at a 146.5. You've got two teams that play at a brisk pace, but not like super duper up tempo. Dayton is about 198th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Bradley is 127th, and both of these teams have very similar strengths and weaknesses. With both of these teams, they generate turnovers. Bradley 37th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Dayton is 7th, and then with this Dayton squad, they give it up from three-point. Teams shoot 35.6% from three against them, 289th in the country. Bradley 318th in opponents' three-point shooting percentage at 36.7%. Bradley has also been rough down low with their 2-point shooting percentage, only at 278th, but 70th with their 3-point shooting percentage at 35.8%. And with Dayton being more pedestrian with their 3-point shooting this season, I do think that keeps Bradley very lively in this game. You've got a Dayton squad that has Emil Latang down low, who's been able to give you about 12.6 rebounds per game, but other than Keontae Jones, who gives you 7.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game, really nobody else gives you more than 4.5 rebounds per game. So a little bit rough there. They're outside the top 275 with regards to their offensive rebound percentage. You've had Javon Bennett along Jashawn Montgomery in the backcourt, combined for about 29.5 points per game and 34 or so percent three-point shooting. I do like the versatility of Jordan Durkock. Had a little bit of a rough start to the season, but throws in there 2.5 assists, a steal, just does a lot of little things well for the team. And then on the flip side for Bradley, you've got a pretty battle-tested backcourt with Jaquan Johnson doing all of what you need from a main guard. 17 points, 2.5 steals, shoots 38% from three. Alex Ubagerste, he's been able to shoot 43% from three with about 12.5 points per game. They have AJ Smith down low, able to give you about 5 boards, shoots 37% from three-point range as well. So I like the weapons from the outside for Bradley. It's a little bit more than that of Dayton. If Bradley gets put to the free throw line, they shoot about 73.5%. That's about 150th in all of college basketball. Dayton shooting more around about 75%, so they do have a little bit of an edge there. But with this Bradley team and the way that they've been able to do a great job in terms of taking care of the ball themselves, they're a top 45 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. I do think that both teams maximize their possessions, be able to get you the over. So my total at a 146.5. And with Dayton, with that free throw shooting, I think that they do just enough to get the job done. So my line at 2.5. So one lay up to 2 with Dayton, and I'm going to be in on the over as well. 697, 698. Sam Houston is going to be on the road against New Mexico, and New Mexico does find themselves as a favorite of 11.5 points. So it's game 164 to 165, and I like the under. I set my total at a 156. Recognize that Sam Houston is looking to play very up-tempo, 84th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. New Mexico more around 117th. New Mexico has been really good with their perimeter defense, 13th in the country in opponent's three-point shooting percentage at 30.3%, 43rd in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Sam Houston State, their main, shall we say, strength on offense is shooting it from three, 37.3%. That is 26th in all of college basketball, but you do have a Sam Houston State team that has a nice advantage down low, 36th in terms of rebound percentage. New Mexico is just 111th, and New Mexico, they're not like an awful team in the inside, but it's not like they're amazing. They're about 116th in the country with regards to their own two-point shooting percentage. They are going to give up some looks from inside the arc as well in terms of opponent's two-point shooting percentage, 258th in the country, so that leads me to the points with Sam Houston, who has one of the best teams in all of college basketball. Po' Boy King, who's been the main scorer for this team, 14 points. He shoots about 37% from three. And then you've got just a whole greater than some of its bars after that. As you've got five additional guys. They give between 8.5 and 11.4 points per game. They've dealt with an injury or two along the way, but have a lot of guys like a Jacob Walker who's able to give you 11.5 points, 2.5 assists per game. Justin Bagg, he's been dealing with injury. We'll see if he's able to go. I don't think so, but he's giving the team 3.5 assists per game, but Kashai not. How about his versatility? 10.5 points, 8.5 boards, 2 steals per game while shooting 38.5% from three-point range. On the flip side, for New Mexico, have a guy in Jake Hall who's been shooting over 43% from three-point range, top scorer with about 16 points per game, and have to like the fact that Uriah Tente and Dayton Aubrey have been able to combine for about 22 points per game. Aubrey shoots 38% for three. Tomislav Bujan has been able to throw in there 12.5 points, 10.5 rebounds per game. It's a New Mexico team that's about 100th with regards to taking care of the ball, and it is the same Houston team that if they get put to the free throw line, they've been a little bit wobbly there at 72.2% at the free throw line, but I do think that even though Sam Houston is right around about country average in terms of taking care of the ball, they're going to be able to do a nice job on the inside to hold in this game. And New Mexico, I think that they're going to do a nice job in terms of winning the battle from the outside, as they shoot about 36% for three, top 55 mark in the country. That said, I do think that the turnovers cost you an over. I like the under, so my total 156, and won't take anything above 10 with Sam Houston. Made them the 10-point dog. 699, 7 under on the card. Murray State is on the road against Nevada. Nevada is a favorite here of 8.5 points. Totals between 162.5 to 163.5. Like the under, I set my total at a 156.5. Murray State is very much looking to push tempo. 36th in terms of total possessions per game. Nevada is not. Nevada, they're right around about 245th in terms of total possessions per game, and for Nevada, they're a team that they very much thrive with their outside shooting. Right now, they shoot about 36.2% from three-point range, 46th in the country. Now they go up against a Murray State team that allows opponents to attempt just 27.3% of their field goal attempts from three-point range. That is the second lowest mark in all of college basketball. In Nevada, they have not been good with their two-point shooting percentage, 324th in the country. Now, credit to Nevada, top 50 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, so they do a pretty solid job in terms of holding up there, and this is a Nevada team that is a top 125 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage, so they'll give themselves a few second and third chances on defense. Nevada, neither here nor there in terms of guarding on the inside, about 146th with regards to opponent's two-point shooting percentage, and they're headlined by the fact that Corey Camper has been tremendous in the backcourt, 17 points, 2.5 assists, shoots 41% from three. They do have a nice rebounder in Elijah Price. 12 points, 1.7 blocks, 1.2 steals, 8.5 rebounds per game. He is pretty much a lone guy on the roster, though, that gives you over 4.4 rebounds per game. Von Weems shoots 41% from three with about 9.5 points per game. It's a Nevada team that has been able to do a lot of little things well. Top 5 team in the country in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession basis, and they do shoot 75% at the free throw line, so that's something Murray State is going to need to be cautious of. But for Murray State, they should have the best low post presence in this game with Frederick King. He has been the king of giving you 13 points, 8 boards, and a pair of blocks per contest. Javon Jackson and Roman Doman, they combine shoot about 36.5% per three, 30.5 points out of both of these guys. JJ Traynor has been able to throw in there 7.5 points per game, and for Murray State, they're about a country average team in terms of putting you to the free throw line. Murray State has been a pretty solid team in terms of executing down low, top 100 team with regards to their own two-point shooting percentage. Neither here nor there with regards to turnover battle, but I do think that with Murray State forcing teams inside and with Nevada just having a very big weakness in terms of being able to execute inside, it allows this Murray State team to remain lively. So my line at 6.5. I'm willing to take the points with Murray State, made a total of a 156.5, so I also like the under. 7-1, 7-2. St. Joe's, they hope to not be average Joe's on the road against Colorado Colorado State. Colorado State is a favorite here of 5.5 points total on this game, 144.5 to 145.5. Semi-total 147.5. I like the over. I recognize that Colorado State is a bottom 10 team in the country in terms of total possessions per game. St. Joe's more of a mid-tempo team at 213th in terms of total possessions per game, but it's a St. Joe's team that, even though they've been a top 75 team in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage, and that's a lot of where Colorado State has thrived, they're 7th in the country with their own three-point shooting percentage at 39.5%. I think that Colorado State is going to flourish on offense. Colorado State has been slow but efficient, 39th in the country in terms of points per possession, with one of their main undoings being turnovers. They're 9th in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. St. Joe's is 275th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis generated on defense. Now, St. Joe's the top 35 team in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage and shot block rate, with Justice Ajabor giving you only about 5.5 points, 5.5 boards, but there was in there a pair of blocks per game. But with this Colorado State team, they're looking to go bounds away from the outside with pretty much 6 different guys that give between 9.3 and 12.2 points per game, including Jevin Muniz, a 6'6" point forward who gives you about 9.3 points, 4 boards, 5 assists. He shoots 36% from 3, and then the other 5 scorers, the other top 5 scorers, all shoot at least 39.8% from 3, including Gary Booth, who's got some size at like 6'9", 10.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Brandon Rechsteiner, 12 points per contest. Kyle Jorgensen shoots 42% for 3. Josh Paris-Relli, 10 points, 3 rebounds, shoots about 41.5% from the outside. And on the St. Joe side of things, they just don't shoot it well from three-point range. They're shooting 30.8% from 3, outside the top 325 nationally. Good news for them is that they have had a guy step up as a main scorer in Jaden Glover, who's been able to give you about 15.5 points per game, and he shoots closer to about 35 or so percent from three-point range. Then past that, you've got Desir Haskins along Derek Simpson, who combined for about 24.5 points per game between the two of them, 11.5 rebounds per game, and Simpson has been able to supply 5 assists per game. It's a St. Joe's team that's either here nor there in terms of taking care of the ball, 11.7 turnovers per game, and they're a country average team with their two-point shooting percentage. I do, though, think that in the end, Colorado State, with them not being under duress, with them being able to take care of the ball a little bit better against the St. Joe's team that really doesn't force the issue there, that allows them to be very efficient on offense, get the job done, and for St. Joe's, having to go up to elevation out there in the state of Colorado, I think is going to be a little bit difficult for them. So, semi-line at 7.5, I'm willing to lay with Colorado State, and I do like this total over as well, semi-total 147.5. Wrap things up with 703, 704. Illinois, Chicago, UIC is on the road against Cal. California is a 4.5 to a 5.5 point favorite, 149.5 to 150 is the total, made a total of a 149. So here at the 150, 149.5, I do like the under. Illinois, Chicago, about 222nd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. You've got a Cal team that's more around about 98th, and this is a Cal team that's been pretty solid in terms of doing the little things on offense. They're overall just 137th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, but this is a unit that is a top 60 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. This team has shot it quite well from three-point range as well at about 36.1%. That's a top 75 mark in the country. The one thing that they really just don't have is low post play. You've got Leigh Dort, who gives you 8 boards, 8.5 points per game. Lone guy on the roster that gives you over 5 rebounds per contest, but John Camden has size at about 6'8", and he shoots about 40% for 3, 14 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. Now, Data Ames has seen a little bit of a dip in his three-point shooting towards the back half of the season, but 38% three-point shooter. He's able to give you 17 points per game. Justin Pippen has been able to give you 14 points per contest, and for a bunch in Cal that has not been able to give themselves a lot of second chances, you look at their offensive rebound percentage, it's well outside the top 275 in all of college basketball. They do go up against an Illinois Chicago team that has been outside the top 275 in terms of defensive rebound percentage, so they are giving up quite a few second and third chances. It's an Illinois Chicago team that they themselves are doing an incredible job in terms of giving themselves second chances. They're a top 40 team with regards to offensive rebound percentage, so they should be able to do a nice job there. And it is an Illinois Chicago team that's been a top 55 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, having a bit of a tough time taking care of the ball themselves. And with the way that Cal takes care of the ball, I think that that's going to be a little bit of an elixir to what they do with this Illinois Chicago team in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. They're about 239th in the country, and they just frankly don't shoot it well from 3. 32.5%, hovering right around about 275th, 280th in the country. Elijah Crawford, Ahmad Henderson, top 2 scorers that combine for about 26.2 points per game. They both shoot less than 30% from 3-point shot. Crawford has been able to give you 4.5 assists per game. You do have a guy in Andy Johnson that's able to shoot 35% from 3-point range, but that's a little bit of weakness for Illinois Chicago. They've been neither here nor there there with their 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage, hovering right around about 150th with both regards there. And I do think that with this Illinois Chicago team, just being one that has had a little bit of difficulty in terms of giving up those second and third chances, I think that that's going to be difficult against a Cal team that, yeah, they have had a little bit of issue on the glass, but much of that was with Leigh dealing with an injury. With him coming back, I do think that Cal on their home floor and doing the little things well gets the job done here. So set my line at 9. I'm going to be able to lay with Cal. Keep in mind the travel for Illinois Chicago, and I do like this total under, set my total at 149, and that'll wrap things up for the Wednesday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Rob Donaldson. He does such great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, that's very much appreciated. And from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.